From Vermont Public, this is The Frequency. I'm Liam Elder Connors. It's Wednesday, April 23rd, and here are today's headlines. Customs and Border Patrol agents arrested and detained 8 workers at a dairy farm in Franklin County on Monday. That's according to an organization that represents migrant farm workers. According to a spokesperson for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, agents were pursuing a person suspected of crossing the U.S.-Canada border near Richford. During that search, they found and arrested other individuals who were, quote, determined to be illegally present in the country. Vermont Secretary of Agriculture Anson Tebbett says his agency is working to learn more about the events that led to the arrests. But he says the detentions are a troubling development for a dairy industry that relies on people who are living in Vermont without authorization.
Many are neighbors and friends. They have kids in school. They shop at our businesses. And they're important to the dairy economy and the local economy for Vermont, and not only Vermont, but across the country.
A spokesperson for Migrant Justice says the detained workers range in age from 22 to 41 years old. All are being held at Northwest State Correctional Facility. Last week, the Trump administration dismissed hundreds of young adults from a federal community service program. Among them were a dozen AmeriCorps members helping to build affordable housing in Bennington County. And a future crew slated to work with Central Vermont Habitat for Humanity beginning in May will no longer be deployed, according to the nonprofit's director, Zachariah Watson.
This group was going to basically finish construction on this house by the end of June so we could get our homeowners to move in.
Watson says the loss of the volunteers could delay the project and drive up the cost, especially if the nonprofit has to buy building materials after tariffs kick in. The AmeriCorps rollbacks are part of the Department of Government Efficiency's cost-cutting campaign. A coalition of state officials, legislative leaders, and environmental advocates are pledging to strongly oppose efforts by the Trump administration to weaken environmental regulations. Those include proposals to reduce toxic air pollution standards and to place a much greater reliance on fossil fuels. Speaking at an Earth Day press conference at the State House, Attorney General Charity Clark said her office is taking an active role to sue the federal government to maintain critical environmental regulations.
Congress gets to decide a lot of things, and the Trump administration has decided it wants to decide those things. So those violations are also a risk because we have laws in place that protect the environment and protect Vermont, and those are being violated along with the norms and the rule of law that go along with it.
Also speaking at the press conference, State Treasurer Mike Pichak said protecting Vermont's environment is the most important long-term strategy to the state's economic future. And a Northeast Kingdom ski resort is one step closer to securing a new owner. The court-appointed receiver in charge of Burke Mountain has asked a federal judge to approve an $11.5 million sale to the local group Bear Den Partners. That's according to VT Digger. Bear Den Partners includes the ski school Burke Mountain Academy, along with Ken Graham, whose family briefly owned the mountain, and the Schaefer family, who owns ski resorts in Massachusetts and New York. The resort is valued at around $20 million, though the selling price is lower because it needs extensive maintenance. The receiver had previously tried to sell the resort at least 2 other times, but both agreements fell through at the last minute. Burke has been in receivership for nearly a decade after federal regulators accused former owners of perpetrating the largest financial fraud in state history. Coming up, scientists are scraping the undersides of docks and finding invasive sea squirts. That story after this. In the last 2 decades, researchers have found more invasive species on New England's floating docks and piers, and those critters may stick around thanks to warming ocean temperatures. As part of our Earth Day series with the New England News Collaborative, WBUR's Vivian Law reports on one of the species scientists are watching: sea squirts.
At a blustery dock in Buzzards Bay in southern Massachusetts, marine biology students lay on their stomachs, heads dangled over the wooden planks to see what creatures are stuck underneath. They use their hands, fishing nets, and even kitchen spatulas to scrape sludge into trays for closer examination.
That's a restaurant green right there.
Oh, yeah.
The students find a lot of tunicates. They're a type of invertebrate also called sea squirts. That's not just a cute nickname.
Did you actually show how they can literally squirt water?
Oh, I guess we could show that.
These colorful blobs stick to things like fishing gear or even other animals. They can cause problems for commercial fishing. Sophomore Dan Kowalski holds up a mussel covered in what looks like pancake batter. It's an invasive sea squirt.
You can see right here, he's kind of growing over the edge of his shell, and on the top of the shells too, so it makes it harder for the mussel to filter feed because it makes it harder for them to open, and that's kind of happening right on this edge here.
This wasn't an issue 2 decades ago, but now many of the sea squirts pulled off these docks are invasive, most likely introduced by hitching a ride on boats from around the world. And once they latch on, they thrive. Kristen Osborne studies sea squirts at the Massachusetts Maritime Academy.
It is more typical when you pull up any sort of sample from the dock here to get a non-native species than a native one.
She says invasive sea squirts grow quickly because they don't have natural predators here. Plus, they're hard to get rid of.
If you were to, let's say, power wash it off of some gear or the side of a boat, you're fragmenting it, so it's just being spread. All these little tiny pieces become new colonies of themselves.
Researchers say rising ocean temperatures are likely fueling increases in many invasive populations.
We see new invasive species being able to survive in locations where they previously weren't able to.
Lexi Neffinger monitors invasive marine species at the Massachusetts Coastal Management Office.
Getting underwater and being able to remove every single individual of that species that are all reproducing is nearly impossible.
So instead, researchers track where species are going to try and avoid further spread. Adrian Pappel oversees a large survey of the New England coast. Every 5 years, volunteer teams from Cape Cod all the way to Casco Bay in Maine hit the docks to count invasive species and log new arrivals. She says this baseline data is vital in a changing climate.
And the more we can get long-term data and long-term monitoring, the better we're going to understand our world and be able to prepare for future changes.
Massachusetts Maritime Academy sophomore Aiden Webb helps with these surveys.
I like being out in the field and at the locations where you pull up just a giant chunk of sea squirts and all the other seaweeds and stuff that's mixed in, and then just sorting through it and seeing what you can find.
Osborne, the sea squirt expert, is excited when Webb spots a native, grape-sized sea squirt called Mogula back on the Buzzards Bay dock.
Oh, you got one. So that's another example of a native species here.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, again, just pointing out the fact that that's one teeny tiny
one tiny one.
It's small compared to the surface area taken up by the invasive sea squirts, and it's no surprise it's one of the only native species Webb found today. Osborne says invasive sea squirts are here to stay, at least in this stretch of the coast. For the New England News Collaborative, I'm Vivian Law.
That story is part of our Earth Day series all this week from the New England News Collaborative. Today's episode was produced and edited by me, Liam Elder Connors. We had additional reporting from Peter Hirschfeld, Bob Kinzel, Carly Berlin, and Adia Golston. And our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Liam Elder Connors. We'll be back tomorrow with more Vermont news. Thanks for listening.
This is Tanya Mosley, co-host of Fresh Air. You'll see your favorite actors, directors, and comedians on late-night TV shows or YouTube. But what you get with Fresh Air is a deep dive. Spend some quality time with people like Billie Eilish, Questlove, Ariana Grande, Stephen Colbert, and so many more. We ask questions you won't hear asked anywhere else. Listen to the Fresh Air podcast from NPR and WHYY.